Today I want to talk about some basic mechanics of the right hand. The right hand is the equivalent of a violinist's bow. It's very important. It's where the majority of our tone production comes from. Some of our tone does come from the left hand in things like slides, glissés, and vibrato, certain things like that, but the majority of our sound really does come from the right hand. I want to talk about some points that I've seen, some maybe problems you could call them, that I've noticed from years of teaching, some common problems, some common solutions that have worked, and some observations I've found through my own playing and practice and struggling through things. I want to try to stick as much as I can to some of the most fundamental issues, because these fundamental things really do seep into everything we do. I don't want to waste too much time in teaching you very specific techniques. I want to really get into the fundamentals. The first thing I recommend is using the top E string as a sort of a study for your right hand. Just playing the top E string. This is something that I do myself every day. The first thing I do after I pick up my instrument, I just play the top E string. I'll make sure my nails are smooth, that I'm satisfied with my tone, and I'll start to work on fundamental things. I like practicing that top E string because it's the most exposing string on the instrument. You can get away with, on the other strings, you can get away with things that you might not get away with on this top E string because it's the thinnest string. So the slightest changes, the slightest roughness in your angles or in your fingernails will come out, be exposed on this top E string, whereas they may not be on the other strings. So the first thing I want to talk about is your self-awareness of the right hand. One thing you can do is use a mirror. This is really important. Use a mirror so that you can see what's going on. The second thing is to use your left hand to get information. So use your left hand to get information. This is why it's good to play just on a top E string like this, and now I can use my left hand and I can feel around and I can see what's going on. Is there any tension happening that I can't feel? Is my hand moving a lot when I play? Maybe I can keep my hand still with my left hand. I can see a little bit of movement. See that movement there happening? So maybe I can find a way by using my left hand, there we go, I can keep that still. The next point I want to talk about is avoiding tension in your right hand. So you can gauge the amount of tension by using your left hand, like we just did before. You can be very specific, or you can be very general. So let's think about some general things. A couple of general habits I've noticed are one of two things. So tension can result in either too much contraction, so the fingers go in too much and hold like that, and then what happens is the hand gets narrowed like that. So and then the tone will be something like that. This is sort of exaggerated, but it can sometimes get this bad, right? So that's what happens with the tone. You can hear how I'm struggling to even move my fingers, and the tone is very harsh. The other extreme is when the fingers are too far coming out like that, separated like that. So obviously, again, I'm exaggerating. Sometimes it can be something more subtle like that. And again, tone will not be so great. You can again use your left hand to gauge information. So if you see your hand doing this, it will feel hard. It will not feel soft and free. It will feel restricted and hard and solid. So the whole hand, that is, the fingers and the hands everywhere. So this is where you can be general and specific. You can feel specific parts, the fingers, the back of the palm there, the thumb, and you can be general and just look at the whole thing and feel the whole thing. And notice that either way, there's going to be this tension. So you want a sort of a balance in between. You want a sort of just an in between, not too contracted, not too separated. The next point I want to talk about is where the movement comes from, where the movement originates when you pluck. So one thing that I notice a lot of beginners particularly do is that they'll use a lot of their tip joint to pluck, something like that. So the movement will be very restricted, and it often also result in an upward movement of the hand like that. So what I think for me is a more efficient movement at the fundamental level. It's not to say that there's no use for this kind of movement from the tip joints, but at a fundamental level I think it's better for the hand, it's more efficient for the hand and for the fingers if they move from the knuckle joints rather than from the tip joints. You get a freer feeling in the fingers. My hand feels very free, it just feels like I'm kind of scratching like that. Very natural kind of thing to do. There we go, so primary movement from the knuckle joints. This will help keep your hand still in one position when you pluck. You won't have to, when you want to play louder, instead of when you pluck with your knuckle joints, when you play louder, you'll start doing something like that. You'll start to pluck in an upward direction like that. At the extreme level, that results in something like that. It results in a slappy sound, so it's something you really want to avoid. On a technical level, you want your hand to be still, and so your fingers feel secure, a sense of security from that. The next thing I want to talk about is the contact point of the finger. One problem we get is nail clicks. So a nail click results when you put the finger back on the string on a contact point, which is mostly nail. Like that. So where do we want to start the stroke and where do we want to end the stroke? They're the two things we want to think about. So we want to start the stroke on nail and flesh. Nail and flesh together. We want to end the stroke on the flesh only, or on mostly flesh, as much flesh as possible. That avoids the nail clicks. So I'm starting on nail and flesh, and I'm ending and I'm restarting on flesh only. Then I make a slight movement to get to the nail. The nail produces clarity and the flesh produces warmth. That's why I like to start on nail and flesh together, and then the flesh only is like a damper that softly stops the string before the next pluck. So my next to last point is to use the arm, the whole arm, to bring the hand to where it wants to go. So this is an important one at a fundamental level. When I'm playing on the first string, my arm is bringing the hand into a position which allows my fingers to easily access that string. Now when I play on the sixth string, my fingers can't easily access it from this position. I'd have to do some crazy maneuver to do that. So instead my arm will bring the hand there. Now notice I'm bending my wrist slightly here for a reason. I'm squaring up. I do the same thing if I bring my arm at the same angle. It gets very scratchy. So this is where I like to move the arm and also bend the wrist. Arm and wrist round. This is the thing about the guitar, right? Every string is different, a different thickness and a different tension. So we need to accommodate for that. The guitar is an extremely inconsistent instrument, so we need to find little sort of tricks like that to make it more consistent. So one common habit I see is when students play on the 6th or 5th on the bass strings here, 6th, 5th, 4th strings with their fingers, and then they need to go to the first string, they don't move their arm, and then you end up reaching like that and you get into bad habits. So it's just that subtle movement. Like that, arm bringing the hand across. final point is to release tension immediately after the pluck. This is a concept, a very fundamental concept that can apply to any physical thing you do on the instrument, whether it's the left hand or the right hand. So what I mean by this more specifically is with every action we have, there is a corresponding action which we can create of relaxation. So we have a balance of tension and relaxation. Ideally, in my mind, I like to think that we are playing in a state of tension and playing in a state of relaxation at the same ratio, like a 50-50 ratio. So we pluck, we're in a state of tension, then we release it. We're in a state of relaxation. So tension, relaxation, tension, relaxation. So this is a fundamental thing that can apply to any right hand study you do, anything also with the left hand, but this is focusing on the right hand, so I'm not going to go into that. So tension, relaxation is quite a simple thing, but there's quite a thought process involved, so it will require you to slow down the tempo of what you do quite a lot. Tense, relax, tense, relax, tense, relax. It could help to use a metronome. You can set it to a beat and go tense, relax, tense, relax, tense, relax, tense, relax, like that. So I hope that helps you with your fundamental basic mechanics of the right hand. Just a little summary. So we talked about using your left hand to get information. That was the first point. Awareness, raising awareness. Left hand to gain information. Then avoiding tension in your hand. So the two patterns that are most common are too much contraction, over contracting, and over separating. And you can again use your left hand to gauge that. The third point was that the primary movement comes from the knuckle joint, because that results in a free hand. It results in more follow through, which gives you more tone, more sound with less effort. It also avoids your hand moving up in an upward direction, plucking in an upward direction, which tends to happen when you pluck from the tip joints. The fourth point was the contact point being nail and flesh together, because nail produces clarity, flesh produces warmth, so together they produce a nice balanced sound. And then to restart the pluck on flesh only so that you don't get nail clicks. The fifth point is to bring the arm, using the arm, bringing the hand to where it needs to go. So if you're playing on the sixth string, bring your hand across, bring your hand over with using your arm movement. And don't forget to square up the wrist a little bit so that you get clarity in the sixth string. And then when you play when you go towards the treble strings, use your arm to bring the hand. It's like a crane bringing it to where it needs to go, yeah? Over there. And you want to come more rounded because the first string is thinner than the sixth string. And the last final point is to release the tension immediately after the pluck. So tense, relax, tense, relax, tense, relax. And we want ideally a 50-50 ratio of tension and relaxation, so everything is balanced. So I hope you enjoyed that little tutorial, and feel free to ask me some questions. If you have any more specific questions or examples from pieces or studies that you have questions about regarding this type of thing, feel free to contact me. So thank you.